Welcome to the third and last live Q&A for Ultra Mega Super Turbo's Kickstarter. I'm Martin-Colby, and welcome. This is going to be a relatively short live broadcast because I think that I covered most of the stuff that I wanted to cover in the first couple of videos. Here, let me actually adjust this mic so I can get a little bit closer to me. There we go. That's probably better. One of the things that I wanted to talk about in this video was something that I had not really directly addressed to, I think, a sufficient extent in the first two videos, because I talked about it in the first one, and that's the third wave philosophy that undergirds what I do at UMST. And that one of the big things about the third wave idea is that coffee is something important, and it's something good, and it's a significant part of the global economy. And all of these things are true, and it just kind of, it elevates the importance of all of those things beyond something that is simply a commodity or something like that. That you are not, in the same way that really fine bakeries look at bread and wheat and grain as something that is elevated beyond simply Wonder Bread. That going into the grocery store and getting a bag of Folgers or something like that, or I mean, Folgers isn't even really that big of a thing anymore in a lot of coffees. I mean, but, you know, just going in and grabbing any bag of coffee off the shelf, that is the equivalent of Wonder Bread. And that the third wave is like, no. You should, if you're going to consume something, if it's going to be a major part of your day, and if it's going to support massive industry, then you should look at that thing as something significant and important, and you should not treat it with a passing attention. That one of the other things about the third wave and third wave cafes, and even though I make fun of them for being self-important, it is something that I think that is important, is also a very fine focus. I talk about finding all of the ways that I can make my cafe better, expand the business model. And the flip side of that argument is when the idea of expanding your business model is used incorrectly. And I think that you can end up with something that's incorrect when you have a different motivation to why you're doing it. An example, Linens and Things, which went out of business, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago or something like that. And get some water. Linens and Things, which went out of business a number of years ago, anyone who remembers going into Linens and Things remembers that their definition of things was pretty friggin' broad, especially in that main aisle, because most Linens and Things were set up as sort of a giant circle, as a lot of stores that kind of sell random junk are. They're actually set up as giant tracks that you're able to follow around the store. Linens and Things was set up like this. So you would enter in and you'd either go left or right, and you do your track around the store. And the track that comes around and dumps you out towards the registers, that track of a walkway, a pathway, was always filled with tons of weird crap. And that's where I think the South Park episode of that talked about the 2008-2009 economic recession, where the character of Randy, one of the fathers in the show, buys a Margaritaville margarita machine, and he buys it on credit. And I don't remember exactly where he bought it, but probably somewhere. It might have actually been Linens and Things where he grabbed it, because that's the place where you bought weird shit like that. You could also Macy's also was notorious. Macy's and Filene's were notorious for having bizarre shit sections where you could just go and get the weirdest collection of garbage. Why would you go to Macy's thinking that, yes, that's where I'm going to go get a waffle iron shaped like Pac-Man? But that's the kind of crap that they would have, or mini pool tables or other random garbage. Linens and Things was one of the worst ones because hypothetically, linens and things should have been focused on houseware and linens. So you would go there expecting to get things like that. And you'd get Margaritaville mixers and balls of cheese balls. And they would have a massive table set up just filled with candy. Every single time you'd walk by, there'd be a massive thing filled with candy. And you could argue that, well, this is an expansion of their business model. I mean, I don't see that as an expansion of the business model. I see that as simply throwing more junk up for sale in the store. It's actually the exact same business model. You're just putting garbage up there that stretches outside of your brand scope. That the brand scope of Linens and Things should not include bags of Ghirardelli squares. And I had a conversation with a friend a number of years ago. We were talking about retail and wanting to open up a store or something like that. And he said that you would always put out that table of impulse buys by the register. And he described it as free money. And that is that underlying motivational difference between the expansion of a business model and what isn't the expansion of a business model. That the expansion of a business model is always about how can we give more to the customer? How can we, in what ways can we give more, provide more for as little money or ideally no money as possible while still making a profit? And when you have impulse buys in the store, when you have impulse buys like a table like that, your motivation is purely profit. Like go to a pharmacy. I was at a Rite Aid pharmacy in Rhode Island a little while ago picking up a prescription, and they had candy by the checkout for the pharmacy. And you go to the Walmart pharmacy and you walk down the aisle, they always have these boxes filled with granola bars and candy bars and other weird things, because they're always trying to get that one last impulse buy that's not about expanding the business model. It's not about offering more value to the customer. That's about trying to tempt the customer into buying something they did not come in there to get, would not have otherwise bought, except for the fact that you're there. They might be hungry. You're hoping that they're a little bit hungry because they're going to look down and they're going to see that candy, and that's going to push them over the edge, and they're going to buy it. And you've managed to suck a little bit more money out of their pocket. And any time that a business decision is based on pure profit or based on parasitism, I actually see that as essentially a form of parasitism, because you're getting money out of them. And especially if you're selling something like just more candy, which is exactly what Americans don't need, then you're drawing money out of them to their detriment. And that is the definition of parasitism. That is not good business. I don't find it surprising that Linens and Things went out of business. I don't find it surprising that places like Staples, because Staples is a bizarre junk store too. You walk in there, I mean, I remember a number of years ago, I haven't been into a Staples. Every time I go there, I immediately go over to the UPS store to ship something. That's the only reason why I ever go into Staples anymore. That they had an entire tray of or entire display of Donald Trump dolls, because The Apprentice was big on the air at the time. And yes, that's what I'm going to Staples for. I'm going to the Office Superstore to get my talking Donald Trump doll that tells me that I'm fired. So when you start seeing that, when you start seeing parasitic behavior, when you see something that is absolutely about simply just putting something in front of customers to try to trick them into getting something, that is a good example of grass in the parking lot. Grass in the parking lot in the functioning of the business. And grass in the parking lot is a term that I got from my dad, where he said that whenever you see like a website where like the copyright symbol hasn't been updated for a year, or there's something else that's outdated, or there's a dated picture, or here's something that's been broken for a year, that is grass in the parking lot. And that's indicative of bad management. And it's also indicative of a business that can't afford to keep the parking lot clear. And when you see parasitic stuff, that is a business model that can't keep itself afloat. It can't keep itself running. It's trying desperately to suck money out of the pockets of people at every step of the way, without actually providing value along the way that gets people in the door, that gets them to do that. The business models that are very strong, you don't generally see a great deal of what's the word? Parasitic activity. Even in places like Target and Walmart, you go to Target and Walmart and they have those those shelves of impulse buys by the registers, but they're actually relatively small, because Target and Walmart have these massive business models actually kind of built upon going there just to buy whatevs. But you don't see a great deal of parasitism at places like that. The amount of parasitism that I see at Staples, the amount of parasitism that I saw at Linens and Things was really significant. And I mean, if Linens and Things is any indication, Staples is not long for this world, as is Office Max. Sorry about brain fart. So when I see something like that, I'm like, well, no. If you are taking something up that does not provide value, if you're taking up space that is not expansion, a true expansion to your business model, if you're taking up space, get rid of the space. That means you're using too much space. The average Staples could be reduced down to a building that is 1/3 of the size of the current average Staples, and they would still be able to be Staples. They would still be providing everything that they need to provide. So there is that roundabout babble that I just did comes back to what a lot of the third wave cafes do, and that they are incredibly focused on being a good cafe. If you walk into a third wave cafe, if you walk into Intelligentsia, or if you walk into Stumptown or Blue Bottle or Grumpy, when you walk in there, you do not have a table full of candy. You do not have a table full of little LED knickknacks that were manufactured by the billion in some factory in Shenzhen, China. You go in and they have coffee, and they have stuff to support the coffee. Croissants, pastries, some chocolate from a local chocolatier, that sort of thing. And that is all that they have. It doesn't matter that they might be able to make more money by throwing those aforementioned LED knickknacks from China up there. They don't do it. They're incredibly focused on just that coffee. And contrast this to Starbucks, which is always trying to Starbucks is a coffee/junk store some of the times. You go there and a lot of their gifts are coffee related in a broad sense, but sometimes it's like a wall hanging decoration that just simply references coffee. They've got CDs. Starbucks tried getting into the music business a number of years ago, and they still have friggin' CDs there. They've got candy bars and nut bars and a wide selection of foods, some of which have to do with coffee, some of which don't, some of which are there for seemingly no reason. I think they were like selling magazines and like newspapers for a little while as well. It's not as bad as Linens and Things, obviously. Nothing is as bad as Linens and Things was. That was just a group of executives desperately flipping through their Business 101 book, trying to find ideas to save this mysterious thing that they called a company. So Starbucks was never that bad, but it still is a decent contrast of a less focused business model and a more focused business model. When I look at a lot of the things that I'm adding, my business model is still very focused. My business model is still, I'm selling coffee and I'm selling food and I'm selling an experience sort of wrapped around that. I expand the business model in the sense that I want to invite other companies or other local companies. Just, I mean, when I say companies, I use that very broadly. I could be referring to just someone who knits hats in their living room on a daily basis to come in and set up a table and sell hats there. Because what I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of the large collection of people there to provide other things, not just to me, but to these other business people as well. But the majority of the things that I'm doing, the profit is all being generated by the coffee and the food. And I'm like, well, how can I sell more of that? How can I expand what I'm doing to attract more people into the cafe? So that's why I think about things like, learn to build your own PC, movie nights, children's movie hour, the library, like the apple dipping festival, the autumn festival, setting up things out in the parking lot where people come in and everything is free. And I'm relying on the fact that when all of these people come in, inevitably some percentage of them are going to buy drinks and food. And when they do that, I can at the very least break even on what I've done. Because if I can break even on it, I mean, think about all the benefits associated with that. I've still made money because I'm paying myself. All of my employees have made money because they're getting paid. The people associated with whatever I've built have earned money because they're there selling things and being part of the festivities. And all of the people have come in and enjoyed something that they've gotten for free. And they've only bought what they wanted to buy. And so, I mean, like that is, to expand that back into like linens and things, like a good way of of expanding the business model of linens and things would have been having, I don't know, like housekeeping classes, how to fold a fitted sheet, which still requires a degree of magic that I only, roughly understand. That would have been a way to actually expand the business model and provide value, provide more. Just give. Always try to figure out some way to give something for free to your customers. You're not in this exclusively to make money. Because if you're always thinking about how to earn money, all you're going to be thinking of, you will inevitably fall into the trap of, well, how can we get more money as opposed to how can we provide more that people might want to buy. That still has to do with your business model. And that will lead to parasitic behavior, like the aforementioned candy. And it's depressing how many places fall into that. It almost doesn't matter what store you go into, that they have the candy bars by the cash registers. I mean, clothing stores have candy bars by the cash registers. Gap, Old Navy, they have got, I mean, actually Old Navy is a really great example. I mean, Old Navy, actually, they've set up the line at Old Navy to maximize your exposure to crap. And Old Navy advertises very heavily to children, meaning that all of that crap is aimed at children, and that means they're strategically making the decision to piss off parents. They are there knowing that they're going to loop this line around all of these displays. And the only way to get to the registers at Old Navy's now is to go past all of these displays in this big loop, this big, snaking back and forth thing, that your kids are going to walk by all of them. And your kids, if they're, like most kids, they're going to be, attracted to these things like, flies to honey or bees to honey. Are bees actually attracted to honey? I don't even know. Flies are undoubtedly attracted to honey, but I mean, bees make honey, but I don't really think they'd be attracted to it. They just make their own. So like flies to honey. And they're going to start screaming and yelling and making just a general racket. And the parent is already frazzled at this point because, I'm sorry, the majority of parents out there become frazzled when their child wakes up in the morning. They made a strategic decision to do that. And they made a strategic decision to piss off parents and make life difficult for them. And I have never been at Old Navy, although, I mean, I've been there pretty rarely, where I haven't had to wait in line for some period of time. It's never been a straight shot to the registers. And I would imagine that that is also a strategic decision, that they always want to make sure that there is some degree of wait, some degree of line, to make sure that the children are exposed to all of these toys and all of these knickknacks for an even longer period of time. And then when you get up to the registers, boom, you are still hit by candy bars and gum and all of these other impulse buys. It is purely parasitic. It does not have anything to do with Old Navy. You look at the Old Navy brand, you look at the Old Navy advertising, all of it's about clothing. They never advertise, hey, come to Old Navy to buy a wind-up LED Ninja Turtle thing. You know, they never advertise that. That's not part of their brand. But it's there. It's there, and it's purely parasitic, and it's depressing. And actually, I mean, again, you know, Gap has financially been very problematic over the course of the last number of years, and that might be, you know, that might be indicative of grass in the proverbial parking lot. So the I don't really know. Like, I feel like I've, even with only 20 minutes of this live broadcast, I feel like I've covered pretty much everything that I want to cover about the cafe. You know, there are a lot of ideas that I haven't talked about because, like I said, I wanted to keep some surprises. You know, I think some pretty significant ideas that go some of the way towards actually changing, because even though my business model is different, in the ways that I try to give away as much as I can, my profit model is still basically the same: drinks and food. And the exchange that takes place between me and the customer is still pretty much the same thing. They give me money, and I give them drinks or food. And the like the actual interaction, the actual exchange of the money is still pretty much the same. I mean, there are some ways that you can kind of like grow the way things are happening right now. Obviously, we've got, you know, e-wallets and Apple Pay and ePay, and Starbucks is making a lot of advancements in offering different modes of pay, where I think that Starbucks is going to be rolling out the ability to go into a cafe, go into a Starbucks, and like sit down, open up an app, and then you order your drink and you put in your name, and basically you just sit down and wait. And I mean, that's kind of cute. I mean, it's fun. I mean, ideally, you'd be doing it to order your drink and pay for it before you even get there, so you can walk in and just grab it. But I mean, I have to admit, I kind of see, like, I mean, the people that would be interested in doing something like that are, I mean, they're already going through the drive-through. You know, I don't see a significant amount of benefit associated with something like that. It's not really, you know, it's not really an innovation. And it also, because another bizarre thing about Starbucks, and I'm just babbling at this point, but what the hell? Another bizarre thing about Starbucks is that not Charles Schultz, that's a dude who created Peanuts, Howard Schultz, the guy that didn't specifically found Starbucks, but he founded Starbucks as we know it. He's always had this kind of idea of Starbucks as this kind of like bohemian European styled hangout spot. And that's always been kind of weird to me, because the idea of pardon. The idea of Starbucks as a bohemian hangout spot, I mean that is long dead. I mean that hasn't been a thing for a very long time. Starbucks is now the McDonald's of coffee, and I guess he doesn't want to admit that to himself. But a lot of the innovations that they're doing when Starbucks started rolling out drive-throughs across the country, because up until really the 2000s or mid 2000s, Starbucks drive-throughs were not very common. They started doing a big expansion of drive-throughs in the 2000s because they wanted to expand sales. And again, they wanted to expand sales without actually expanding the business model because, well, I mean, expanding the business model would require a great deal of investment and change and all of this other sort of stuff. And I think that's probably the reason why, going back into the 2000s, why Starbucks entered some doldrums financially, because they're just like, well, how do we increase sales? You know, that's all that they really cared about. Well, I'm a gassy boy today. I mean, Starbucks is the McDonald's of coffee. Those two philosophies seem to really be in conflict with one another right now, where he wants it to be this bohemian hangout spot, but at the same time, all of the changes that they are making, that they are touting as the biggest deals right now, are higher speed payment options. Well, if you're a bohemian hangout spot, you don't give a crap about high speed payment options. You know, you just walk up, you order from the barista, and you get your drink, and you're already sitting down reading a book or a magazine or something. You don't care about being in and out as quickly as possible. I mean, they introduced drive-throughs for that very purpose. I mean, this payment option, the payment option that they're going to be rolling out seems to apply almost exclusively, or at least best, to drive-through types of customers. You know, I have no prejudices about what UMST is. I have no prejudices about what I am. I am someone who wants to provide value to people in exchange for money. And I've got to figure out how to provide value. Because if I'm providing value and getting money in return, then I feel great about myself, because I feel as though I'm providing something to the broader economic environment. That's the reason why coming up with value and figuring out what you can get people to buy are different questions. Frequently, they might seem the same, but like, for example, the candy at Linens and Things. You're not asking we can provide value by offering another option for buying candy, because that's not what you're doing. You know, people have tons of options for buying candy. And if you wanted to provide candy in the store, then maybe you would provide a candy aisle or something like that. But the fact that they're putting it directly by the register in hopes of taking advantage of an impulse buy, that is, you know, you're not providing value. You're relying on the, not prejudice, but the predilections of humans to behave in particular ways in particular environments, regardless of their own best self-interest. And providing value assumes that the people are rational entities interested in their own self-interest. And obviously, that's part of the whole libertarian economics. It's total nonsense, because very frequently people are not interested in their own self-interest. And that's where a lot of, I think, more negative business practices come from. They know that they can go in and they can manipulate people psychologically. They can manipulate people through display placement and manipulate them through the way that the stores are designed and where you put particular products and how products are designed and things like that. And like the good differentiation was when the guy that owns Carl's Jr. Was asked or was actually attacked about putting a lot of sugar in his burgers, because McDonald's also puts a lot of sugar in his burgers. He said that and they were attacking him, saying that he was making his products addictive. And he said that if you, by addictive, you mean making a better product, then yes, that's what I'm doing. And that's wrong. That's wrong. You're not making a better product, because his entire definition of value and of good product is very simple. It's a bottom line perspective. And that is the stupid, top down, ignorant executive perspective on value. If people are buying it, then I am providing value. And that's, and the inevitable, for me, the reductio ad absurdum to that is that then heroin provides amazing value, because once you give it to someone, they keep fucking buying it. That is not a definition of value. And that's the reason why when he used that definition to say that, well, people buy more of my burgers, that means that they're good products. No, what these people are saying is that your burgers are the equivalent of heroin. That is the definition of value that I do not use. The definition of value that I use is much more complex. It's a much more difficult concept to get. It's a much more difficult concept to grab, because not only do you have to be immersed in your own product and immersed in your customers' lives, you also have to be immersed in the philosophy of the entire endeavor. You have to be immersed in the economics of it, in the reality of their lives. And are you genuinely providing value? Are you making their lives better when you give them your product? And that is the definition of value. That is very critical and very difficult to do in a business context, because it's not simple. It's not easy. It's not something where you just, grow your business and thus obviously we're making more money. It's like, no, you have to figure out, you have to define value. You have to define value distinct from money, because money and value are different things, regardless of what your libertarian friend or your Chicago school economist friends might say. Value and money are very different things. And to provide value is sometimes difficult, because again, sometimes people are not in tune with their own best self-interest. Sometimes it can be frustrating. It can be frustrating because you'll look out and you'll see all of these people going out and doing stuff that you know is against their self-interest, and they keep doing it. People will continue smoking. People will continue eating horrible food. People will continue gambling. And it's frustrating, and it leads to, I think, the perspective that, again, a lot of conservatives and a lot of libertarians take, which is this elitist perspective, because they see themselves not as idiots. That it's so frustrating, you eventually throw up your arms and say, well, fine. If you want to be manipulated, if you want to be taken advantage of, then I will do so. I will do it, and you deserve it. And that's a very cynical perspective to take. And frankly, even though I'm coming from what I see as an idealistic perspective, I don't blame people for falling into that cynical perspective. I really don't. Like, I honestly think that a lot of the smarter people, the manipulators in like the Republican Party, they when they say stuff that economically, socially, psychologically, and philosophically has no grounding whatsoever. I mean, it's completely untenable. They're just saying, yeah, I'm manipulating them. Of course I'm manipulating people. Actually, no, not even just Republicans, but politicians in general. Of course I'm manipulating them. I have to manipulate them. If I don't manipulate them, I don't get elected. And thus, they deserve me. They deserve me. And I don't blame people for falling into that cynical trap. I don't blame businesses for falling into that cynical trap, where a few years ago, Stephen Colbert did a thing about Domino's Pizza, when Domino's Pizza redid all of their recipes, and they said that the weakness in our business model was really our core product, where they had people in this commercial for Domino's saying that the pizza tasted like garbage and it was awful. And Stephen Colbert joked that, because we're the human garbage disposals that were eating these trash discs by the millions, that from the executive's perspective at Domino's, the fact that they were selling trash discs and people were eating them. I mean, they were eating these trash discs. And, it's almost like, what do you do in a situation like that? What do you do? What do you say? I don't even know. And all I can say is that I don't want to fall into that trap. I don't want to provide value in that way. I don't want to become that kind of cynic. I mean, I can be a cynical bastard in private, when I'm talking about movies or media or culture or anything, but that when I'm going to go out into the world and attempt to make my way in it, I'm going to be idealistic in my activities, because even if there's a small chance of success, I want to take that small chance. I don't want to be the one that goes out and takes advantage of the world simply to take advantage of it. And I think that's the reason why you see so many museums and things like that in New York funded by all of those, god awful wealthy people from Wall Street, because they get into their 60s and they realize that they haven't done shit. They've done nothing but move numbers around their entire lives. And a lot of them know and understand explicitly that they're just taking advantage of a privileged position within the massive machine that we call our economy. They're not providing value to us. They're not providing, some of them are delusional, but a lot of them aren't. And so they get to the point in their 60s where they're just like, I haven't done anything. I haven't done anything with my life. So I'm going to try to rectify that by investing millions and millions of dollars into local museums and getting my name on a building or something like that. And the funny thing is I have some experience with fundraising for local, for universities as well, dealing with people who do fundraising for universities. And that is actually, that is a negotiating, or not negotiating, but sort of a marketing tack that these people take when dealing with very rich people, where basically you go in and you don't say it explicitly, obviously you're supposed to be subtle about it, but you essentially undermine their sense of existential worth. And then you say that we can fix that for you by having you invest $1 million into the construction of this new building at Brown University or something like that. And so I find that funny, that once again, you're manipulating people. So many people are out there in the world of business just trying to manipulate people. But back to Starbucks, like Howard Schultz seems to have this almost schizophrenic idea of what Starbucks is supposed to be. And he's got the Starbucks main places. He's got the Starbucks, like the places that you would go to, like go and get, like your drive-through, like triple venti frappuccino or whatever the hell giant tankards of sugary coffee syrup people are drinking. He's like all of the stuff that they're talking about is all of these new forms of payment, new ways to just kind of get people to buy more quickly. But then the stuff that he actually appears in, the video that he appears in, are all of these like artisanal Starbucks locations. They're opening up a couple over on the West Coast right now as these experiments where they have these single origin coffee beans that are coming through these like pipes in the ceiling in this massive, I think the New York Times did an article about it. So go check out the NY Times. These like steampunk inspired pipes and tubes running through the ceiling that pneumatically push coffee beans into these dispensers, and all of these high-end espresso machines and finely trained baristas and things like that. That it's like, I see this as, again, a guy who doesn't want to be doing what he's doing, where he I don't know, maybe he has recognized, maybe he has accepted that Starbucks is in fact McDonald's, just without burgers. So he's focusing all of his attention on these really tiny operations. These tiny operations where you've got beans that are measured in the pounds instead of the tons, because Starbucks operates on tons. And he wants to start up all these little individual places. And this is actually the second time that they've tried to start up these sort of specialty Starbucks. They tried starting up maybe a number of years back before the economic collapse. And that was where they had all of these bizarre machines. He tried expanding the Clover coffee machines out to a number of Starbucks locations nationwide that never went anywhere. These specialty Starbucks locations that have like, all of these decorations and amenities designed by local artists, those never really went anywhere. I don't really know like what he's got to accept what Starbucks is, and he's got to work within those boundaries, because I think that Starbucks could actually do something really fantastic. I think that the place that could really do something fantastic is Barnes and Noble, where I think that if Barnes and Noble really expanded their cafe, and it's funny because I mean that's kind of where I'm going with UMST. I'm coming at it from the reverse angle, where I'm opening up a standard cafe and then opening up a library that's as big as I can manage in the cafe. Barnes and Noble already has a library. That's what Barnes and Noble is. I mean, it's a library and a bookstore basically, and they could open that up. And if they expanded their cafe, I mean, try to bring people in via the cafe vector as opposed to the bookstore vector. I mean, even going so far as opening up just standalone Barnes and Noble cafes. I think that Barnes and Noble could do a great deal to bolster their retail environment while providing genuine value to people and really expanding their business model, because that is, that's neither here nor there. That's where I'm coming from with like the library. Expand that value, expand the value, give people something more, give it to them for free, just let them have it. That's how you provide value. I don't want to fall into this. I don't want to fall into the trap of essentially being a business that exists in a system of wage slavery. That's it's actually a socialism concept. And I think I mentioned it in the first video as well, where an economic system where the only way to do anything is to earn money. And if you don't do that, if you're not earning a wage, you can't do anything. And a lot of charities try their best to give people a stipend that might make them like a living wage to at least a small degree, because there are a lot of people out there would like to live their entire lives doing charity work or out there working, but they can't. They can't do that because they need to get money to be able to survive. And I don't want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of trying to make a world where people can survive and make a go of it and make at least some semblance of a living with as little money as possible. And the more value that I can provide at the cafe, the more likely I am to be a part of their life, where I actually do get a small amount of their money. And if I don't get a small amount of their money, I've still made the world a better place. I've made the world a better place for them. I've made a world a better place for all of the people with whom they are interacting. I've made a better place for my cafe, because when you have people out there that are doing a lot of work for not a lot of money, they're still generating value. Because remember, again, value and money are not the same thing. And you see that in all of these studies done where, how much value per dollar put in do people generate? And there was a study done in the United Kingdom, I think in 2010. So, I mean, the numbers were a little bit skewed because this was during the doldrums of the economic crash back in like 2010, where they determined that like garbage men produced like 11 pounds worth of value for every 1 pound of payment that they received. And elementary school teachers were also up there, like 10 pounds for every 1 pound of dollar paid. Or a pound of value paid. And I would imagine that because the UK is pretty similar socially to us, that the equations are, you can just drop them over here and they're applicable. That means that for every dollar that we pay a garbage man, we're getting $10 to $12 worth of value out of them. And if you have someone who's doing charity work and they're not getting a lot of money, that means that they're generating a massive amount of social value for almost no input. I mean, no input. I mean, the social value that they might be doing. Imagine people that are truly dedicated to the beautification of the city, and all they want to do is go around and clean up graffiti and clean up garbage and keep the city looking beautiful. And we're paying them nothing, but they're happy with that because they're doing what they want to do. I mean, imagine how much value that they are generating when tourists are coming into the city, when businesses are coming into the city, and seeing a beautiful, attractive, garbage-free city because of this one person that we're paying bupkis to. They could generate thousands of dollars in value, crazy amounts of money in value. And so even if this person that doesn't want to do a lot that earns them money, they want to do things that don't earn them money, even if I provide value to them that does not come directly back to me out of their pockets, it does inevitably come back to me because they are out there being a part of a system that they are making better. They're injecting value into the system that will inevitably come back to me because other people that are earning money will earn more money because of the value that these people are generating. And I addressed it a little bit in one of the earlier videos, in the first video, and also ever so slightly in the Kickstarter video, that yeah, I'm going to have a lot of freeloaders coming in. I'm going to have people that are providing very little social value and just, you know, generally not doing much with their lives. You know, the weirdo who comes in and tries looking at Pornhub all day long on one of the free computers. Yes, I'm going to be dealing with them. That's fine with me. I'm going to be dealing with people that come in and steal all of the books out of the little free library just because they're shitheads. You know, yeah, I'm going to be dealing with all of that. But when you throw your arms up and say, fine, I'm not going to do anything, that's that cynical trap that I was talking about. You don't give up. Because you're a business. You're earning money doing all of this. It is your job to figure out ways around these limitations. It is your job to figure out solutions to these problems. You're getting money to do it. So by simply throwing up your arms and saying, oh, I can't figure this out, you're throwing and saying, like, well, I failed at what I intend to do. I have failed at my chosen life. I failed at everything. Well, it's like, good God, man, then just pack it up and just go live in a closet. If you're willing to give up that quickly, you provide value, you do good by the society, you do good by the economy, both your smaller and the smaller area of the economy and the broader economy. You do well by all of that, and you figure out solutions to problems that enable you to do more of that over and over and over again. You don't just give up because you're not just a cafe. You're not just a burger joint. You're not just a mechanic. You are part of a broader economy. And when you throw up your arms and say, there's no way for me to solve this problem, you are weakening the broader economy. You are weakening your neighbors. You're weakening your friends, and you are weakening yourself. I mean, it is from my mind, it is a contemptible perspective to take. And that's the reason why I don't, in that sense, why I don't fall into the cynical trap. I believe that falling into the cynical trap is a contemptible position to take because it means that you are giving up. You are saying, I failed, I'm not even going to try. Well, then leave. Get the hell out of the way and leave space for other people to try, which is what you are not doing when you are a business that is not trying. You are there taking up space, eating up money, eating up customers that could be going to someplace else that's better. That's the reason why badly run large corporations are contemptible organizations. And things like the giant banks that are giant zombie banks right now, Bank of America, Citicorp, that are fundamentally broken, why they are contemptible organizations and the people running them are contemptible people, because they are eating up a huge slice of the economy that could be going to something else. McDonald's is a contemptible organization because every place that there's a McDonald's is a place where a local burger joint that could be providing greater value is not. Walmart is a contemptible organization because everywhere they are, there are a large number of other companies that are providing greater value that Walmart is not. That is why this is contemptible. That's the reason why these people are contemptible. You don't give up. You are always trying. You are always giving more. You are always paying more. You are always putting more and more and more out into the economy, because if you don't do that, it never comes back to you. You are nothing more than an economic parasite writ large. And I never want to be that. I never want my businesses to be that. I never want UMST to be that. I want UMST to be as big as it possibly can be by being better, by sending out positive tendrils of economic activity and positive tendrils of money and exchange into the economy. And knowing that these tendrils inevitably, even if it's one way at the beginning, they inevitably turn into veins and arteries, and blood courses through them. Economic, social blood courses through them, and it comes back to me. It comes back to me and it goes back out. And all of these businesses become little hearts beating inside of this body, this corpus of blood coursing through this, the veins of the economy. All of these little beating hearts providing oxygen and blood to each other. And it becomes better every time one of those hearts beats harder. And that is what I want. That is what I want this cafe to be. That is what I want every business that I start, every business that I'm associated with. I want that to be that. Because if it's not that, then I become that cynical asshole. I become that jerk who is fine with manipulating people and doesn't concern himself with providing true value. And I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I wouldn't be able to live knowing that all I'm doing is I'm just setting up a shop, putting out a sign out front, and vacuuming up as much money as I can. That is an intolerable thought to me. That is not a business. That is not me. And my businesses would inevitably be an extension of me. Well, I mean, I haven't quite hit an hour, but like I said, I've talked about pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about. And I hope that you like the sounds of that, because even if the Kickstarter fails, some point in the future, I'll have this. UMST will open. And I hope to see you there. So thanks for watching, and happy holidays.